Hello everyone. Welcome to our SIGUCCS webinar. We're very glad that you could join us today to talk about deploying and managing state-of-the-art workstation labs like a boss. My name is Beth Rugg and I'm going to help facilitate the conversation today. As you may or may not know, everyone is in listen-only mode, but there's still an opportunity to ask questions by just chatting in a question into the chat window. So before we start, can I just make sure that you know how to use this tool? Can you go ahead and just send me some random question or a hello? Thank you, everyone. And hello, right back at y'all. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Naazer. We've allowed about 45 minutes for this session, and there'll be time for questions and answers at the end. But like I said, as we're going through the slides, if you want to just chat in a question, I'll go ahead and let Naazer know that we have something for him. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Naazer.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Beth. I'm hoping everybody can hear me. Good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you for taking the time and joining me for this session on deploying and managing workstations like a boss. I'm Naazer, and I will be your host for the next hour or so. This is my first SIGUCCS webinar, and I'm extremely excited to be here and share more of our experiences with you. So let's get started. This deployment project has been a 2-year journey of rethinking deployment strategies in some of our workstation labs. I would like to focus, however, on deployment and leave the management component off a little bit, as I feel several of you are probably in the same boat and in the midst of deploying labs, PCs across your institution, and might find some of these techniques and workflows useful in your roles as IT superheroes. Now keep in mind that everything you see here is equally applicable to Windows 10, Windows 7, and Windows 8.1. First, word from our sponsors. Lehigh University, located in Pennsylvania's scenic Lehigh Valley. The campus is in close proximity to both New York City, Philadelphia. The region is home to about 750,000 people. We at Lehigh University, our IT organization, is rather decentralized, with library and technology both services integrated as one unit called Library and Technology Services. Just a few other details of our staff, undergraduate and graduate populations. This building is Packard Lab. This is home to our mechanical, electrical, and computer engineering departments. It is also the location of our flagship PACE labs that I help to manage. It is also where Naazer spends most of his day. A workstation. I thought I'll talk a little bit about this. Now, all professional workstations are computers, but all computers are not necessarily professional workstations. I believe that the right tool for an engineer's job is a professional workstation, and they are more capable and surprisingly more affordable than ever. If you're looking for ultimate performance, you want to look at a workstation. It's the highest performance, most reliable personal computer that you can buy. Our students and researchers continue asking for more and more computational performance, and these workstations help them publish more papers, run more simulations, and do a lot more than they could have done with just a high-end desktop. The performance of the workstation starts with the processor. All workstations will feature latest Intel Xeon processors, and these are designed to deliver processing and bandwidth capability that elite users require. Now, workstations also support professional-grade graphics, expansive memory, multiple hard drives. That system you see there can support up to 7 hard drives. The result is that you have a high-performance machine that is faster, highly scalable, and can quickly deliver results on processors. This all translates into substantially greater user productivity and return on hardware and software investments. Here's some of the engineering software that we run. You'll probably recognize many of them. Altair, ANSYS, Autodesk Simulation, LabVIEW, MATLAB. Now, it's true, not every job requires a workstation. However, workstations are purpose-built for a given set of high-level applications. So as an engineer, our tasks include advanced applications, 3D and architectural modeling, design simulations, and complex detailed analysis. There's no desktop system that you can buy that can support these workloads like a workstation does. Now, SOAT decided to focus our efforts on the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit solution. And we're really excited about what an effective solution this has turned out to be. And we were hoping to share our experiences with our colleagues and the community. It has not only helped us in our lab deployments, but has also provided several other benefits that we did not even think were possible. And we are using the Deployment Toolkit 2013 Update 2. That is the latest release. So what is MDT? MDT is a free deployment solution built by the enterprise client management team at Microsoft. It has been around for about 10 years or so and provides end-to-end guidance, best practices, and tools for planning, building, and deploying Windows OSs. It is an enterprise-ready deployment solution. I was thinking of walking through the interface a little bit. This is your main interface. It's called the Deployment Workbench, and you notice a bunch of folders. You need to add content into these folders. It is essentially a file share. And once you have done that, you can start creating what they call task sequences. And a task sequence is exactly what it sounds like. It's a set of steps that MDT executes in a particular order to complete a deployment scenario. Here is what the applications node looks like. This is the operating systems node on one of my test environments. And this is what drivers looks like. You can keep them nicely organized in a hierarchy, just ready to deploy. Now, how do you get started with MDT? It's time for a shameless plug. SIGUCCS will also be offering a pre-conference seminar where I will try to walk you through deploying Windows 10 and creating the server structure and everything you need to get MDT working in your environment in an afternoon. It will also be a deep dive into Windows 10 and MDT. But in the meantime, I recommend building your own lab. And this is what I did. I got an old mobile workstation, a Lenovo W530, installed a 500 gig solid-state drive, and added some memory. I have even run these environments on a Lenovo T410. So if you have anything newer than that, I think you're good to go. I then deployed Server 2012 R2. And I'm sure many of you have GreenSpark agreements where you can get the server licenses for free. And for those of you that do not, you can always download a 180-day free trial from Microsoft. You then need to enable the HyperV role. That lets you run virtual machines. A little trick I learned was you can enable this feature called Deduplication. And this really does some neat things that I'll get into in a bit. And of course, all these things can be fully automated using Powershell. If you take a look over here, I have about 3 terabytes worth of virtual machines, only consuming about 150 gig on the solid-state drive. That's pretty cool. So even a 250 gig solid state drive is more than capable of running multiple proof of concept environments these days because of deduplication, which actually works a bit like this. That is deduplication. That's what Windows does with your files when you enable the deduplication role. It slices them into little pieces and throws away every identical piece and compresses the rest. And this does not affect performance if you have an SSD. Reference images. This is the first image you will want to create. And a lot of people, even online, ask, why do you need a reference image? And the only reason you need a reference image, especially with Windows 10 now, save you time. That is the only reason you need a reference image for. A good question to ask yourself is, how much time do you have to deploy a machine? How much time do you have to deploy a lab? If you have a week to deploy a machine, you're probably not going to need a reference image. But say you have 15 minutes to deploy a machine, you're probably going to need at least 10 gig Ethernet, solid state drives, and a pretty darn fast computer. So depending on how much time you have to deploy a machine, you pick and choose how you use your images. Now, a good reference image provides the foundation, provides a good foundation to start building your custom images. For us, a good reference image contains a fully patched Windows OS, .NET Framework, C++ runtimes, and a fully patched Office installation. The reason for this is that we need all these components in every image that we create. So it made sense to include all of these in a reference image. So use MDT to create your reference image. You automate the entire process. We create reference images every month. And all we have to do is run a PowerShell script, take an extended lunch, and 2 hours later, we have a WIM file on the server ready to use. If you go to this website, deploymentresearch.com, and search for Like a Boss, there's a very good article that walks you through creating the perfect reference image. This is how a Windows 10 reference image task sequence looks like. Once again, a task sequence is exactly what it sounds like. Every line is executed by MDT in order. And you can add or subtract commands to tailor the task sequence to do exactly what you want it to do. I'll walk through this in a little bit, hopefully if I get to the demo. Now, if you're having trouble picturing what MDT does, think of it as the engine that drives the deployment. You add the drivers, the applications, and commands, and MDT runs through those steps. And all of this can be fully automated using PowerShell. So you don't have to click on screens, dialog boxes. You can just start the sequence and walk away. Very important. Use virtual machines when creating your reference images. The beautiful thing about using a virtual machine is that it has very few devices. It's a very generic machine that is likely to break things in future deployments. So please take advantage of virtual machines when creating a reference image. You simply get a very flexible and very superior image. You can also take advantage of snapshots to greatly reduce the time to create those reference images. Let's talk about some of the benefits of MDT. Number one, it's free. It happens to be my second favorite four-letter word. Number two, it's faster, and I would agree it's easier. Getting up and running with MDT, at least the basic setup of it, takes a little over an hour, not long at all. And another reason to use MDT that the image you get is extremely flexible. You can deploy that image with everything. MDT, Alteryx, LANDesk, Config Manager, DISM, Windows to Go. Any product that deploys a WIN file can use this image. You can also add it to your VMware library. Apply it to disk and clone it. You can import it to Virtual Machine Manager, apply it to a VHDX file and clone it. The same image can be used with everything. Did I also mention it can be fully automated? Another thing which a lot of people find useful, and they still do to some extent, is using default user profiles. The copy profile that was so popular in Windows 7. And the way you do this is you can add a suspend action. And this is not because Naazer encourages you to do manual steps or things like that, but this allows you to also check on the image before you seal it and then sysprep and capture it. Or perhaps you have that really special application that is just impossible to automate. So you can add a stop, do that one manual step, and then have the sequence continue and do the rest. The brains behind all this automation is a simple text file, also known as the rules or custom settings.ini. Here you set the values for various properties that you typically would have had to click through or manually configure. It's so powerful, and we have only scratched the surface of what this file is capable of doing. Now, this file can also reach out to other resources. Could be external scripts, could be databases, web services, and MDT already contains all the code that is needed to make these connections. So all I need to do a database call is just add a few lines, and it magically pulls information from a SQL database. All comes down to this INI file. And when this INI file is configured correctly, it can really do magic. Then, of course, the number one pain point in Windows deployment is drivers. Where do you find them? How do you deploy them? First, you have to find the drivers. In a perfect world, you'd expect there to be a single place where you could download ready-made drivers for all your hardware. Unfortunately, this is not the case. And each vendor tries to make available their own tools and resources to get drivers. For Dell, you need to search and download what they call their cab files. For HP, you have to get the HP Softpak Download Manager. For Lenovo's, you have to use their Update Retriever. Then you simply pick the models you have and download and unpack the drivers. Once you've downloaded and unpacked the drivers, you simply add them into the MDT driver repository, which is stored outside the image and injected during deployment. We made a few bonus discoveries while we were investigating MDT. Number one is we could simulate a deployment. We can verify deployments in about 5 seconds to check that we have the right computer name, the right OU, right applications, the right everything. Whatever the machine needs to have, we can verify really quickly. And we don't have to deploy a machine, wait an hour just to realize we made a typo somewhere, or the computer name was wrong too. This alone saves hours, if not days, in deployment projects. We have the ability to also configure the BIOS automatically in the task sequence. We could automatically do things like update the BIOS, enable the PPM, and even pre-provision BitLocker. I did not believe this until I saw it. It's pretty cool stuff. The last thing worth mentioning is real-time monitoring. This is a great feature. We can monitor the progress of our deployments in a variety of ways. This is how the MDT monitoring node looks like. You can see 6 clients here for this example being currently deployed and how far along they are. What is even cooler is that we have the ability, and this really excites me, to remote in to these deployments. And this is tremendously useful when you want to interact with or troubleshoot a machine that is halfway around campus, just not easily accessible. And it also avoids having to get on the phone with someone, which is a bonus. Looks like we'll try to get into a demo. I'm going to kill the screen a bit and see if I can show you all a few things. The machine should work just fine. This is a machine. It's a workstation running Server 2012, and I like to have multiple environments because it's really easy to set these things up. So what I was hoping to show you all is this is what HyperV looks like. It's a virtualization platform like VMware, like Citrix, but HyperV, the thing I like about it is it really lets you interact with Powershell, and Powershell is truly king. And there's so much of things you can do with it that I keep getting blown away every time someone shows me something new. So what I was hoping to do was, let's see if we can jump into a demo script. This is a very simple PowerShell script. It sets a few variables, and let's see if I can zoom it going. And essentially it does a few things. It sets the path for the virtual machines. This is the ISO where it's going to boot on. This is the network I'm choosing. And these 2 blocks are just little code snippets that are going to create virtual machines for me. So if I try to go through these, and what I'm running is I'm running an elevated PowerShell IC prompt, and it just lets me work interactively. So I can just select text like this, run it, select this block of text, run it. Wonder what can go wrong in a live demo. But what that's essentially doing is it's creating a virtual machine. It is booting an ISO, and that's going to find my build deployment share. And all this really doesn't take much time at all. And you know, I have this completely automated in theory, and it should not ask me for any questions. But again, that's just in theory. Every time I see it, I always notice something different. But what it's doing right now, it is running through a task sequence. And you saw that start, and I think if I pull this screen over here, let's see if I can get to it. There we go. That task sequence is basically running this. It is my Windows 10 task sequence. So it's formatting the drive, it's installing the OS. I've disabled it just to make things run a little faster, but if I had these enabled, it will do the following. It will install the following applications, again all fully automated. I like to include .NET Framework, all the C++ runtimes from 2005 all the way to 2015, and it will also silently install the click-to-run version of Office 2016. Restart the computer, run Windows updates as many times as it has to. And it could reach out to Microsoft Update Catalog to get the patches, or you could run a local WSUS server to get the updates even faster. Once it's done, I can also use a suspend step. So this is where if I want to configure a default user profile, it would pause the sequence at this step and let me do my customizations, do my changes if I want some local policy changes, if I want to add any custom applications that I cannot automate like this, I would do it at this step. And once I'm done with that, I will resume the sequence. It will run Windows Update one more time, and then it will automatically sysprep and capture an image and put it on the server. I mean, all that, it's just a matter of scheduling a script. That's pretty much what it comes down to. And I did not invent these or come up with these things. These are, if you look on the internet and if you follow the other folks doing OSD, these are just common things that people come up with and they use. Because deployment is a collective effort, and every time you look at the current state of the union, I would say, people are coming and showcasing new tricks, new, more efficient and elegant ways of doing things. So let's take a look at what this machine is doing. So it's installed Windows, and it's going to boot. And it's going to boot for the first time. And it'll probably go through those application steps if I had them enabled. But once it's done with all that, what will happen is I will get a WIM file on the server. Just to speed things up a little bit, I did a deployment just before starting this webinar. I will have a reference image, a WIM file that's automatically saved on the server. This was a, this is how you create an image. So this is a reference image. This image is ready to be deployed to actual machines. The way you do that is I have my production share. So this build share is what I would use to create my images, and the production share is what I would use to actually deploy the images if I am using MDT as the deployment tool. So again, it looks identical to this. It's a file share, but the only thing slightly different in the production share is it's going to be connected to my production network. The build lab I keep on a private network. Private network enables me to do things like run my own domain controller, DHCP servers, WSUS servers, anything I need to be able to create my images. And on the production share is where I would also have drivers, PE drivers, Windows 10 drivers, and you try to keep them organized. You know, Lenovo, Dell, this is just a test environment, so I only have a few systems that I have been working with and testing and tweaking and trying to automate. But you won't have any drivers when you're creating reference images because you do that on virtual machines. The monitoring feature, I'm hoping I can give you a little bit of insight on. I have this ThinkStation P410 that the Lenovo rep just sent over. And it's a nice little machine. It's a small workstation, packs quite a bit of punch, but took a bit of time to get automated into the deployment stream of things. So you can't see what I'm doing here. I just kicked off an automated deployment of the Lenovo machine right now. And let's keep an eye and see if it pops up over here. This is an older deployment. No, it just started. So this is the machine, a physical machine that I'm actually deploying, that I can actually go and take a look to see how things are going. Hoping this is not too small for you, but it's formatting in UEFI. It's going to copy some scripts over, and it's going to inject drivers. It's going to find the drivers from this folder over here. And you build that intelligence into the tool in a couple of different ways. There are some well-established ways of how to handle drivers. And if you do a search online for driver alias, I think it is. I have the link at close to the end of the presentation where you can find 2 resources to be able to do most of what I've been able to do here. So we're not going to look at this. It's going to be fully automated. I did it about 3 times, so I'm pretty confident that it should not ask me any questions. Let's close that one out. The last thing I'll spend some time with is the rules. So if you right-click your deployment share and take a look at the rules, this is what helps automate that sequence. So, add a bunch of variables, and these are all functions that MDT uses. It gathers a bunch of functions about the system, and you can use those variables in a very dynamic way. So this is a private, it's a private network, so I don't mind putting passwords into my deployment share like this. Nobody else can see it, nobody else uses it, but you will not see those type of lines in my production share. Let's take a look and see what where our referencing actually is right now. So right now it's actually going to execute sysprep, and it's going to create the WIM file. And hopefully after that we should have another file in on our server that we can massage into our production share and start testing with applications. Applications is its own, I would say, you can do 5-day trainings just to figure out how to work with applications in MDT or config manager. It's more an art form than a science. It's one of those things which you really need to do a lot of trial and error to tweak and figure out. But let me see if while these things are running, I'm going to jump back to my presentation here. Staging with PE, and it's going to capture an image right now. So these are some resources that I use in the last couple of years or so that have really helped me with my deployment projects. 2 books, very hands-on, easy reading, and they're available on Amazon. Now I realized very quickly that if you want to deal with IT in the year 2016, you have to learn Powershell, which is Microsoft's framework for task automation. Powershell in a month of lunches was a really great way to get up and running with Powershell. You set aside just an hour a day, and I was automating tasks in no time. You start with basics, and it walks you through techniques and features that will really make your job easier and your days a lot shorter. The Deployment Fundamentals book is also something I recommend. It walks you through an end-to-end standing up of architecture in a step-by-step guide. It's a great book. The thing I like best about it is that you can download what the author calls a hydration kit to quickly set up the lab environment on a single laptop or workstation and follow along. Then there's also these guys. You will eventually come across these guys or their work, and they're very active on social media. So if you're not on Twitter, you should get on it. Follow these guys, and perhaps also follow the guys that they follow. All the evil gurus in OSD and config manager are very active on Twitter and social media. Their blogs and literature is well respected. These guys are actually brought in as consultants by Microsoft to even write their own documentation. Virtual labs assist in the development of their own tools. And they've been doing OSD for a lot longer than Naazer's been alive, so they have a tremendous amount of experience behind them. That's Johan. He's from Sweden. He specializes in systems management and OSD. His blog is deploymentresearch.com. Has a ton of useful information. This is Michael. He's also from Sweden and travels the world helping folks build better data centers. And I kid you not, his blog is actually called deploymentbunny.com. Go figure, these guys have a sense of humor. So some final thoughts. Get a solid state drive. You can tell your managers that Naazer told you need one. Build your own lab and play with it. There is no excuse these days for not having a lab. You owe that to yourself. Use MDT. It's awesome. And don't just take my word for it. And the last bullet, it just means take advantage of work that has already been done to get a solution up and running quickly. There is no need to reinvent the wheel. You just need to make your lives easier. If you do this, I promise you will learn a lot, not just about OS deployment, but a lot about how Microsoft tools are used in the enterprise to manage an organization. Active Directory, group policy, networking, file shares, Windows, and applications. You just learn a lot about various fields in IT just by doing OSD. It has been a very enriching journey for me, and I encourage you to try and learn as much as you can about it. I think with that I am done. Thank you for taking the time today, and if you have any questions, I'd love to try and answer.
Wonderful. Thank you, Naazer. Does anybody have any questions? I know at least earlier somebody was interested in the website, and I know that was in the presentation. This is being recorded, so this will be shared out on the SIGUCCS website afterwards. But
I'm looking on the right where I see the people's questions, so you might just have to read them out to me back.
Sure, absolutely. We don't have any questions coming in yet. I'll just wait a few more minutes in case people are still thinking.
Absolutely.
As Naazer alluded to, from a SIGUCCS perspective, we have had some feedback that people are interested in learning more technical, gaining more technical expertise. So this was somewhat meant to whet your appetite. There will be a 3.5-hour opportunity at the SIGUCCS conference in Denver this year. So if you'd really like to dig in deeper with colleagues, then please look up that pre-conference workshop. That'll be held on Sunday afternoon, I believe. Here's a question for you. How do you deploy your image? What solution do you use?
How do we deploy the image? So the labs that I manage and the engineering clients also I work with, I will use a combination. So for the labs, right now I will use MDT and also Configuration Manager with MDT integrated into it. That actually is a pretty powerful solution. Now, we do not have Configuration Manager set up for the university on centrally. This is something else. This is also one of my other projects that I've been trying to gain expertise in and try to show the value and try to bring online. Hopefully, in the next within this year is what I'm hoping. But MDT is a great free deployment solution, and it really gives you the tools to be dynamic with your deployments. So you don't need to reuse, you don't need to have multiple images for different scenarios. You can, an example I try to give everybody is, say for instance, you have a laptop and a desktop. You can dynamically install applications on the fly. As soon as MDT starts, it does what is called a gather, where it tries to find information about the system it's going to deploy to. And it captures variables, and it actually captures information and stores them as variables. You can do queries like if this laptop equals true, install these other applications. Like I like to install the Cisco AnyConnect VPN and different power profile plans on laptops. And for desktops, I would have another set of applications depending on the situation.
So we have another question. Does this require being a domain administrator or network admin?
No, it does not. There are plenty of ways. If you have some elevated network rights, you can do a few extra things. But right now, if you want to get a deployment started, you can stage up MDT. It's a file share. It's essentially a file share that you can set up on your computer or on a computer that has network access, and you can use boot media. So you can have a USB flash drive, or you can have Pixie booting set up if you're on very good terms with the networking team. I can involve a bottle of scotch sometimes, but Pixie booting really helps you with lab deployments where you just hit F12 and everything is fully automated after that. But no, you do not need domain admin rights or any elevated network rights to get started.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions? Naazer, I don't see anything coming in, but I believe if people do have questions after the fact, are they also able to reach out to you via email?
Yes, we can actually. Let me get that up. If this is a OSD config manager, MDT, these are topics I'm absolutely passionate about. So if anyone has questions, just reach out to me, naazer@lehigh.edu, and I'll try to at least point them in the right direction. I won't be able to walk them through too many things, but there's plenty of resources out there with blog posts and essentially blog posts. That's where I solidified most of my knowledge with, and reading a couple of those books really puts things in perspective. And of course, the more you do it, you really need to play with these solutions, and you will automatically teach yourself things like how you can automate naming the computer the right way for your organization, how you can automate the install of apps and things like that. So sky is the limit, and we're just scratching the surface on this. We are not experts by any means of the word. So I hope this was useful, and I will continue to try and talk more on this topic and engage as many folks as I can in the SIGUCCS community.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for those who've been able to attend this webinar. As I mentioned, I have been recording this, so hopefully it will be available on the SIGUCCS website in just a few days. So thank you and have a great day.
No problem. Everyone do the same. Have a good day.